The Secrets of Star Trek is brought to you by the Star Quest Production Network and is made possible by our many generous patrons. If you'd like to support the podcast, please visit sqpn.com/give. You're listening to The Secrets of Star Trek, where we discuss the hidden layers and deeper meanings found in all the Star Trek TV series, movies, and more. And today we're discussing the latest episode of Star Trek Strange New Worlds, Lift Us Where Suffering Cannot Reach.
Love lift us up where we belong.
We're all thinking it, if you're of a certain age. I'm Dom Bettinelli, and joining me today on the panel are Father Cory Sticha. Hi, Father Cory.
How's it going?
Good. And Jimmy Akin. Hi, Jimmy.
Howdy, Dom.
Folks, I want to remind you to stick around to the very end of the show because we have some of that awesome listener feedback, and this week is really good. So stick around. You'll want to hear that. I also want to remind you to like The Secrets of Star Trek on Facebook, on our Facebook page, facebook.com/StarQuestMedia. Retweet us when you find us on Twitter. We're at SQPN. And be sure to leave comments wherever you find us. We love to read your comments, and we can then share them on the show as listener feedback. Another show on the network you're sure to enjoy is called Raising the Bets, and you can find that wherever fine podcasts are found or at sqpn.com/BETTS. That's bets. So, Jimmy, can you give us a recap of what happens in this episode?
This week, our Let's Meet the Crew of the Enterprise episode focuses on Captain Pike and his hair. The Enterprise is at Majalis, a hellish non-Federation lava world with acid lakes. Only lifted up above all that is a gorgeous paradise made of floating cities. While there, the Enterprise rescues 3 people from an orbital kidnapping attempt, and the 3 would-be kidnapping victims are, number 1, Alora, an old flame of Pike's who he rescued 10 years ago. 2, a sacred child known as the First Servant, and 3, Gamal, the First Servant's biological father and biological doctor. The kidnapping attempt was made by people from a neighboring star system, but the Majallans are a super private people, which causes problems for the Enterprise crew as they navigate the situation. It turns out that the magic child is urgently needed on Majalis for his ascension ceremony, which is vital to the future of the planet. In fact, we later learn that if he doesn't ascend, their civilization will die. It also turns out that the Majallans have magic level medicine that could restore Captain Pike after his accident in the future, but only if he becomes a citizen of Majalis and lives by their customs. The magic level medicine also could cure Dr. Mbenga's daughter, but they aren't allowed to share it. Captain Pike and his hair rekindle their relationship with Alora, but disturbing revelations mount. It's ultimately revealed that the people who have been trying to kidnap the magic child are a breakaway group of Majallans who want to save the child from his terrible fate of ascending, which means being plugged into a machine that will cause him constant suffering in order to keep the floaty civilization off the ground. A horrified Pike witnesses the ascension ceremony, and he's knocked out to prevent him from saving the child. Since Majalis isn't a Federation world, Pike is unable to do anything about the nightmarish situation, but it instantly kills his relationship with Alora as well as any desire to come live on Majalis in the future. Dr. Mbenga is more fortunate, as the boy's biological father was secretly trying to help save his son, and he shows Dr. Mbenga a way to treat his daughter, even if it isn't a full cure, so we can end on a note of hope. The end.
So, lots going on here, and you keep mentioning Captain Pike and his hair. One of the vice presidents.
I've heard other people mentioning it too.
Yes, yes. One of the vice presidents of Apple is the guy named Craig Federighi, and he's the face of whenever they do their big showy events. And they were always commenting on his hair, like his majestic hair. And like someone put them, Anson Mount and Craig Federighi's pictures together. They're like twins. It's kind of wild.
That's funny.
So just it's funny.
I do hate to say it, Jimmy, but it almost reeks of a little bit of envy there for his hair.
Yeah. Some of us are envious of those of you who have more.
Because that's a glorious bouffant that he's going right there. That's just perfect.
It's quite the head of hair.
I commented on how Spock's sideburns are out of control too, and I am not lacking in that department.
That's true too, though.
Yes, and some of us can actually grow beards. So, although Pike did grow a beard, that's true. Anyway, enough about the hirsute nature of Captain Pike. We should talk about the fact that Pike starts off by talking about in his log about he's been to Majalis for a rescue mission once before, or though he was there and got involved in a rescue mission as a lieutenant, and it almost killed him. But this is a routine cartographic mission, and nothing should happen, which, obviously.
Notice how whoever is doing the log entry at the beginning of the show is our focus character for the episode.
Right, right, exactly. Yeah, so keep an eye on that in the future. Although, by the way, have you noticed we've not had Hemmer show up for 2 episodes now? So
yeah,
not a main secondary character apparently. Which is
well, I think he's going to be. I think we just haven't gotten to him yet for
right.
a major focus episode. But I'm expecting a Hemmer log entry at the beginning of the show sometime, probably this season.
Yeah, and they did have the episode where where he was trapped in the cargo bay with Uhura.
Yeah.
And that was kind of a focus, but he wasn't like the primary focus of that episode.
Sure. Speaking of Uhura, she's the cadet making her various rotations, and now she's on security rotation. And we're told that Noonien Singh has Laan has 7 lessons of security that she has all of the people who have to go through rotation with her have to memorize and endure, even including the captain. I mean, they're fairly legendary to the fact where he knows them and won't reveal too much about them because you have to experience them yourself.
He tells Uhura to watch out for lesson 7, but when she asks what it is, he makes a "my lips are sealed" gesture.
Right. So what was lesson 1 again? I think that one got by me. I picked it up with lesson 2.
It was like, I forget exactly how they phrased it, but it was something like about being alert because a white tiger will attack with no, or some space tiger will attack with no warning.
It's a Rigelian tiger because all the Star Trek's version of space whatever is Rigelian. Like in Doctor Who, it's always like space flu, space arc, that sort of thing. In Star Trek, it's a Rigelian whatever.
Unless it's a drink, then it's Saurian brandy, or something like that.
Or they'll throw in other names, but essentially you can just gloss it with the word space. So we have space brandy, space tigers. Yeah.
Yep. Lesson 2 is incidentally, security doesn't take breaks. So the action really begins with this shuttle under attack by an aggressor vessel. And Pike has this, he broadcasts this message to the aggressor vessel, which I kind of like because what he says is, he's saying to the aggressor, as the other vessel has appealed to us for help, I am bound by Federation law and my own conscience to intervene, which I thought was an interesting statement of morality in an episode that is about morality, the moral nature of certain acts. So, right off the bat, Pike is expressing, I am a moral person who follows the dictates of my conscience. I kind of like that right up front.
I like in this sequence, because they have Uhura in training as a cadet. She's seated at, I don't know exactly what they're calling it, but essentially it was Sulu's station, the helmsman's station. And so it falls to her when Pike gives the fire order for her to be the one to operate the phasers. And he said that he wants their engines knocked out without, blowing them up. And the ship moves as she's targeting it. And so when she fires at it, she does way more damage than was intended. They don't blow up, but they do crash onto a nearby moon or something. And she immediately apologizes and explains, they moved and they took more damage. I was trying to target precisely. And all that's totally credible. And I like the fact that they let Uhura as a cadet make mistakes like that. That's good.
Yeah. Although it seems a little, I don't know, improbable that you put a cadet in charge of the weapons as you're in this tense situation to have her firing in a situation where you're trying to not destroy. it's a delicate operation.
It is, but I took this as more she was there and this all developed really quickly.
Right.
Yeah. And there wasn't, it wasn't prudent to try to sub someone else in for her since she was already at the station.
Yeah.
And this wasn't a life or death situation for the Enterprise. I mean, they said, the first round of shots did like 0.02% damage on the shields. I mean, it did like nothing. It was, so it wasn't on the Enterprise, and it was just supposed to be basically the equivalent of a stun to another ship.
Right. But yeah, she messes up and people died apparently,
well, they said that the crew that was on that attack shuttle beamed off.
Oh, okay.
So they didn't die. They just they got off before it crashed. They also had time to wipe the computer. So
yeah,
I did like though that the combat cruiser was using grapplers instead of a tractor beam.
So older, yeah.
Yeah, and that's why they didn't find bodies when they later beamed down to investigate the wreck.
Right. So they beam aboard the folks over on the shuttle.
That would have given away immediately that they were Majolans if they had found bodies.
Yep. Because we have Alora coming on board, and she right off the bat lies and says that this must be from this colony, this old abandoned colony from these aliens, not that we don't know very much about. So we get her first lie right up front. So Pike recognizes her on the transporter platform. She calls him Lieutenant. He gets very flustered, and she's very flirty. So, we have a clear connection here.
He's flustered because of how flirty she is, in part. It's not because she called him a lieutenant.
Right. Yeah. But Una takes advantage and calls him, or should I call you Lieutenant?
Yeah.
So we get M'Benga, a scene of M'Benga and his daughter. He's reading his story. So we know, as soon as you see her, that there's going to be she's going to be part of this story with the boy being involved. And so you have the boy.
We also get a little more clarity on what's going on in terms of her being stored in a transporter.
Mm-hmm.
Because M'Benga says that he's got the transporter on a timer. So it brings her out automatically, and he's there when that happens to read to her or interact with her. And then it automatically beams her back, even in the middle of a sentence she's saying.
Right. And so, meanwhile, the boy, the holy child, the first servant, he had gotten knocked on the head or something during the attack, and so the Gamal, the elder Gamal, who we find out is his father, demands to be taken to sick bay.
I just can't get over the fact that Gamal is Hebrew for camel. And so this guy's kind of a sourpuss. He's kind of like a camel.
Yeah. Well, and they intentionally make him, I think, unsympathetic off the bat as part of the misdirect, because this is a big misdirection story. Where we're supposed to be sympathizing with Alora and being suspicious of Gamal, and that will all shake out later. Yeah.
Yeah, I love though in sickbay. So as they're having the kid checked out, Nurse Chapel picks up this device, which turns out to be a subdermal scalpel.
Yes.
Yep. So like this will make incisions without breaking your skin.
Yes.
And it's like, wow, that is magic technology from a 21st century perspective. And Gamal is just completely dismissive of it. He doesn't want her to use it at all.
Yeah.
All he wanted was for them to scan the child and not to do anything to the child. And he refers to sickbay as an abattoir. Which is an older term for a slaughterhouse for animals.
Right.
Well, he even calls the subdermal scalpel, a butcher's knife, which I think was almost a call out against Discovery, because of course this was an episode that had a long title like Discovery did. Yeah. And one of the Discovery's episode, of course, is the butcher's knife cares not for the lamb's cry.
Oh, yeah.
I almost wonder if this was a little bit of a, okay, fine, we're doing a long title episode, but we're going to call out Discovery on that.
Well, there was also the Dr. McCoy, when they ended up back in the 1930s in the Guardian of Forever episode, The City on the Edge of Forever, he referred to stone knives and bear skins, that they're stuck there, with the equivalent. Oh, no, that was Spock, actually.
Spock.
Who talked about the technology at the time of stone knives and bear skins.
Well, and then you had the search for whales where he was, criticizing the hospital
Yes.
Oh, yeah. As being
That's what I was
medieval.
thinking of. Yeah, medieval
Yep.
medicine. Well, in any case, so we have the Holy Child who called the first servant. He's chosen at birth to embody Majalis' maxims of science, service, and sacrifice, which is nicely alliterative. So they must have had a good marketing meeting to come up with that term. He forswears his only family because everyone of the planet is his family. And so they were on retreat on this moon when they were attacked by this ship. And the boy is to ascend to the throne in 2 days. And we keep having these references to things, and we form this picture of a mind. Oh, he's ascending to a throne. He's going to be a king. He's going to rule. I mean, it's interesting that he's called the first servant, and that his role is service and sacrifice. Oh, little do we know how literal that those terms are going to be when later on.
And they don't even say ascend to a throne, just that he's going to ascend, and so, okay,
Right.
is that going to be like Daniel Jackson and Stargate SG-1, or is it,
Right. That's, in fact, I think I filled in to the throne when I was making my note, because that's sort of implied, but it's not exactly what they say.
Yeah. They do want us to think this is like ascending to a throne, though.
So Allura, meanwhile, doesn't want any investigation. Oh, I just want to leave it behind me, and we want to get to the planet. And Una insists that it is necessary, and Pike concurs because Starfleet regulations, you have to investigate any ship that attacks a Starfleet vessel, which is a good policy. I think that we should always investigate such things.
Oh yeah.
So we, I forgot if we mentioned that the boy that Gamal reveals that they have their medicine. They don't have, like what Starfleet has. They have quantum bioimplants, which basically heal you from within of any disease as soon as it occurs.
On the molecular level. Disease is basically unknown to them.
Right.
And I gather what Gamal wanted to check was to make sure the quantum implants that the kid has are still functioning properly after he gets hit. Because they'll take care of anything else. So you don't need to use your butcher's knife on the kid.
Right.
Yep.
And I wrote down, as soon as they mentioned the bioimplants, I'm like, oh, this is going to be the answer to M'Benga's daughter's disease. This is, clearly that
Pretty
connection.
much.
Allura says something. Oh no, he says something along the lines of, on Majalis we have a saying, "Let the tree that grows from the roots of sacrifice lift us where suffering cannot reach." That's the episode title then. And again, that takes on a whole horrific new level when you get to the end of the episode and you find out what they're actually referring to.
Because the sacrifice of children is what is literally lifting up their civilization off the ground.
Right. So they will not suffer the bad environment on the planet's surface.
This is another one of these. We have this technology that was built hundreds of years ago, and it's all built on, some need of a neural pathway, neural network of a child.
Right. It's a lost technology. Yeah.
And they eventually, hang a lantern on it and say, that's what's going on. And we don't know why our forebears set it up this way, but it works and we're committed to it. And for now, but we are looking for alternatives. In fact, Allura says that, by the way, notice she's got a trait name too. Allura is clearly based on allure.
Yeah, alluring.
So she has feminine allure for Captain Pike, so she gets called Allura.
Right.
But her research 10 years ago, when she had a shuttle accident involving a pulsar and Pike rescued her, that's the research she was pursuing, was looking for an alternative to plugging a kid into this nightmare machine.
Right. This episode kind of reminds me of an original series episode, another civilization that was the Cloud Minders. So, not only the Cloud Minders, but also because they have the things up in the clouds. Yeah. But I mean, I immediately thought of the Cloud Minders for that. But also, I'm forgetting the name of it, but it's an earlier season episode where you have a planet suffering from overpopulation. Oh yeah. And they want Kirk they want interaction with Kirk so he can get him sick. And it'll cure their overpopulation by getting diseases so some of them can die. Right. There's also another one about the two planets that are having a war via computer, where if a strike is declared in your zone, you just report to a disintegration chamber, and it's so much more civilized than regular war.
So it's allowed it to continue because people don't have the pressures to, hey, maybe we want to end this thing.
Right.
So it's an alternative sociology episode, and it's very much like the original series. That's one of the things that leapt out at me, especially as we got towards the end. In particular, and this is something I don't mind. Oftentimes, some people will say, "Oh, sci-fi is at its best when it's commenting on contemporary problems," and no. Sci-fi is often at its worst when it is commenting on contemporary problems. But essentially what this one is, they don't pick a hot button issue, but it is a real issue of, well, don't children in your world, in the Federation, suffer? And yet the people who are living in luxury turn a blind eye to that. And it's like, well, actually, no, not in the Federation, not from what Gene Roddenberry tells us anyway.
Right.
But they're really commenting about the real world. And of course, there are children in the real world who suffer, and people in luxury can turn a blind eye. And Alora uses that as a kind of moral equivalence. She says, at least here we know we're causing the children to suffer for the greater good of society, and we don't turn away like your people do. How she would know our people do that, I don't know, given the amount of contact. But so they're clearly interacting with a real world social issue here, but they're not doing it in a super preachy way other than, this one scene is preachy, but it's not as obnoxious as what we often get.
Right.
And there are perfectly obvious moral differences. It's like, number one, when children suffer in the real world on planet Earth, it is not for the greater good of society. It is an accidental byproduct. We are not torturing children in machines in order to have luxury. That's what you're doing.
Right.
That's not what we're doing. And secondly, if people who live in luxury don't immediately rush out to help all of the suffering children, it's because we have, number one, already established social safety nets, and number two, because the children that are not covered by those safety nets are people that an individual has no power to help. Because you can't just go out. There's no place you could go. It really, people, when they talk about, overpopulation in food, they have the idea, oh, we don't have enough food to feed everybody. We totally have enough food. We have more than enough food. That's why obesity is such a problem. The problem is not that there are starving children because of lack of food or anything. The problem is that you have local corrupt governments that prevent food aid from getting to their people because they're a kleptocracy and their leaders are skimming off the top. And so if you're a person in the West who has a comparatively comfortable existence, there's not really anything you can do about their local corrupt government over there.
Right. War and, various geopolitical problems are the greater cause of such things. Yeah. So they beam down to the planet where the alien ship crashed to investigate, and Uhura gets to learn the third lesson of security, which is let the tricorder do the investigating. Don't touch things.
And the lesson is a good one, but not for the reason La'an states. La'an says, because they beam down and Uhura touches a panel on this crashed ship. So it's like she's touching a control panel. And La'an jumps on her and says, some Klingon ships are equipped with an auto scuttle system. Scuttling is where you destroy a ship at sea. You sink it. And even the lightest touch could trigger an auto destruct sequence. And I'm going, that's the stupidest reason. I would, okay, don't touch maybe because it could be contaminated.
Right.
Touch the alien thing and rub your eye, not a good idea. But if this ship had an auto destruct sequence that was designed to prevent it from being salvaged by others, if that system is still functioning, it would have gone off at footsteps, which are much more of an impact than a light finger touch. Also, if it has a functioning sensor system and detects alien life forms aboard, that could set off the system. You know, or the tricorder readings themselves, if it detects it's being scanned, that could set it off. So don't touch when you got clomping around footsteps, tricorder readings, and alien life signs being broadcast. If this thing wants to blow itself up, it would do it without you touching it.
Right. The better reason for lesson 3 is tricorders have many more sensors than your fingers and eyes do. So let the machine help you.
And they can interact with the machines on a direct level instead of through indirect sensors.
Yeah. So in their investigation, Laura finds an oath coin. She happens to find it there, which is convenient. And
this is a kind of medallion that they wear, that their security people wear to signify their loyalty to their system.
Yeah.
But one side of it has been defaced.
Right.
So it's like the front of it is normal. So you could hold it up to someone and say, here's my oath coin. But on the back, you've secretly betrayed everything and scratched it all out.
Yeah. It's essentially either like the Praetorian Guard or the Secret Service or that sort of thing. And it's unimaginable that one of these guards would lose his coin. So it must be, a traitor.
Much less desecrated.
Yes.
Right.
Which is a horrific idea for Laura, that her Praetorian Guards have been corrupted by some evil ideology.
Right. No one could possibly have stolen it and defaced it or something like that.
Or replicated it.
Yeah. It's kind of, but this is, again, as I'm seeing this, I'm thinking, yeah, something doesn't smell right here with Laura. There's something going on here. So Pike goes with her to find the traitor. Yeah, they beam down, they line up all the guards, and they make them
present their coins.
Before we get to that, I want to mention that Spock on the ship finds a neural dampener that's sized for the boy. So and then he shows it to Gamal, who's a doctor, who's like, oh, I don't know what that is. It's it can't possibly be what it's for.
That's another one of those just happens to find, because it just happens to be laying in the corridor, not in like a bridge, not in another room. It's just laying right in the corridor. Like,
right. Although they might have been on the bridge because there were consoles there, but yeah.
It may have gone by too fast, but it wasn't clear to me what the rebels were planning to exactly use the neural dampener for.
They mentioned,
I remember them kind of starting to talk about it, but I don't remember what they said.
Later on, Gamal says that it was designed to basically suppress the bioimplants to make him unsuitable for the ascension. It was it would have made him not possible. So that's
okay.
That was So meanwhile, when Alora and Pike they line up the guards and they make them all show their coins, and she gets one guard to who it turns out he's the traitor. He kills one of his fellows and runs away. And when they can,
okay. So he's got this weapon, and it looks kind of like an axe, but also maybe it's a spear.
It's like a halberd, really, like the Swiss Guard,
and it zaps people and instantly destroys them. And I mean, fast. And so all of the guards have this. So why do we then have this elaborate chase fight sequence when they've got ranged weapons capable of destroying each other instantly?
I could see them trying to capture him alive. I get that. Why isn't he just disintegrating everybody as readily as he did the first guy? Like, I don't, he doesn't seem to be all that. So when they finally get him cornered, Alora purposefully puts herself in between Pike's phaser and the guard so that gives the guard the opportunity to take her hostage. And then she accidentally kills him.
Right. And as he's holding her hostage, he says his goal is that he has not betrayed his oath to the child. He's going to end. It's something like he's going to end this hell world and so forth. So we don't know what the meaning of that at the time, but once you learn what's going on, it's like, okay, this guy was a good guy.
Yes.
He realized that the society was inappropriately taking advantage of these children, these special children, and it is morally hellish what they're doing. And so he has not betrayed his oath to protect the child. He's actually trying to save the child by what he's doing.
Mm. Yeah, he says, long live the first servant, which is, again, like, well, if he's betraying him, why is he
saying that?
All becomes clear. So back on the Enterprise, Uhura is, we have a little funny scene with Lieutenant Kirk, Sam Kirk, and we get lesson number 5, lesson number 6.
Back.
Yeah, he is back. But briefly, we get lesson 6, which is know when to bend the rules, because La'an stole a bunch of data chips from the crashed ship and is going around Starfleet protocols to ask Uhura directly to translate them all, being a linguist. She wants her to translate them.
And this is kind of stupid because, okay, so number one, you're doing an investigation. She says she can't run these because of protocol. She can't run them through the ship's translator because it'll have a record and so forth. Okay, why? You're doing an investigation.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, you know, what is preventing you from studying the records of the ship that attacked you? That's one of the things you should investigate.
That was weird. Yeah.
Yeah. So that doesn't mean it's just to give Uhura something to do. And I mean, that's the real reason. There's a non-diegetic reason for it.
Although even that doesn't really make sense because she could have just assigned it to her.
She could have assigned it to her. And also Uhura these are computer chips. You're going to have to plug them into a computer to read anything off of them. Right. And so unless, are you telling me they've got air-gapped systems on the Enterprise that you would use for this, that Uhura could access without leaving a paper trail for Starfleet? Really? I mean, she's going to do it on her, is she going to do it on her personal iPad or something?
Yeah.
And you're going to need a computer anyway. The fact she's a linguist is not going to help you that much because a linguist decoding a new language and learning all of its vocabulary and figuring things out from a computer database, which is essentially what she's got. All of that is going to be heavily dependent on computer work anyway. The fact she's a linguist is not going to help you, really.
Well, come on, Jimmy. Don't you know that they have privacy on their personal terminals, but the translators have logs of everything that's translated? And you're right. It's pretty ridiculous. But since she didn't get a Magellan warrant, La'an couldn't look at those files. Apparently, I don't know.
I guess that's what it is. Yeah, it's because it was Magellan just jurisdiction, except they were already investigating. Yeah,
that makes no sense.
This whole scene doesn't make any sense.
If Federation regs require you to investigate, that gives you the right to look at their database.
Yeah, this is the weakest scene in the show, I think, in the episode. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really, and I hate to say it, but I'm kind of getting a little bit annoyed by it that they're holding up Uhura as the super girl, super language girl. And I mean, I like the character. I like the character Uhura, both from, Michelle Nichols' version and this version. But do we need to be reminded every other episode that she knows 5 bazillion languages? She's the next, Hoshi Sato type person. I mean, do we really need that?
Yeah, I would take the Mary Sue aspects of the character down. But having said that, I really like this actress.
Yeah.
I love her performance of Uhura. She is, I mean, in ways, I like it better than Nichelle Nichols, who originated the character. This actress is so likable and friendly and charming. I mean, wow, she just has so much charisma. I love this actress's performance.
Well, it reminds me of first season Tilly in Discovery, who I really enjoyed.
Yeah, it's definitely not a complaint about how the actress plays her, that the character is a good character. It's just how they write parts of this character is what I complain about, more than anything else.
Like even Hoshi had her doubts. Like she had, she didn't know if she belonged in space and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
So meanwhile, we find out, of course, it's illegal for Majalis to share its technology to heal Mabenga's daughter. Of course it does.
Hey, they're just the Tolans. Oh, another Stargate reference.
Right.
They have their own version of the Prime Directive. And we do too. When it comes to technology, there are export controls on what American technology can be shared with other countries.
Yep.
We're not going to give China our best tech. They're going to try to take it anyway because a lot of the people running America's security systems are idiots. But we don't willingly give them our best tech.
So that was an issue, what, about 20 years ago when like PlayStation 3 came out, that places that you couldn't export a PlayStation 3 to North Korea and Iran because these were powerful enough computers to be used for crypto and things like that, for, breaking cryptography and stuff like that. So this is something that we have a concern here in the United States even today.
Yep. And apparently the Prime Directive ban doesn't apply to medical intervention. Is what Mabenga says.
But it should. Because now maybe not to treatment, like you come over here, we'll treat you and send you home.
Yeah.
But it should apply to medical technology because you can use that for germ warfare.
Yes.
I mean, imagine in the 24th century, species specific or even clan specific genocidal bioweapons. It's like, this is totally harmless to us, but guess what? This one family on your planet is going to die. Let's say the royal family.
Yeah, we've seen that in various science fiction stories. So Allura is, but at this point, showing all the signs of a femme fatale, including seducing Pike. We get all the signs are there. Although
he gets his shirt off and is laying in bed with her. It's like, okay, shades of Jim Kirk.
Right. Although it turns out that perhaps she's sincere in her feelings. Like at the end, it looks like this isn't just a put on in order to trick him, but she actually is sincere in her feelings and that sort of thing. So that's a little different. He tells Allura, like you mentioned before, he tells Allura about his known fate. He knows what's happening. And she tells him that their tech could heal him, but he would have to. Then she kind of pulls back because she says, you'd have to become a citizen and abide by our rules, and
just like Dr. McCoy in The World is Hollow and I Have Touched the Sky.
right. But I think she knows how he would react to finding out. I think that's part of why she's been hiding what's going on from him all along. And I think when she lets him come to the ceremony at the end, I think she's secretly hoping that he'll be okay with it.
Yeah, she's kind of rolling the dice. And it's like she would like him to come here in the future and live. But if he's going to do that, he'll eventually learn the truth. So she may as well let him make an informed choice. And so she lets him witness the ceremony. So she gets approval from their ruling council to let him witness it so that he can hopefully understand what they're doing and why they view this as important, and then come back and become her husband in the future.
Meanwhile, Mabenga comes back to sickbay and finds the first servant playing with his daughter. This really brilliant kid figured out what was going on and what was hiding in the buffer and brought her out. And so that, we have that. So again, we're advancing that storyline.
I like the hopscotch graph made out of noble gas rings. That was kind of cool.
That was fun. Yeah.
That he's harvested from the ship's life support systems. Yes.
Yeah.
And
it's nice. It was, I think they pointed it out even that because these are noble gases, they shouldn't hurt anything.
Yeah.
And that's true, because the reason noble gases are called noble is because they act like noblemen. They don't want to interact with common riffraff elements, so they keep to themselves. And they therefore won't, combine with cells and with atoms in your body and mess you up.
Right.
Or blow up or things like that.
Yeah.
That's why you can inhale helium, which is the king of the noble gases that doesn't want to interact with anything.
Yeah.
And you can inhale it and it's not going to cause you a problem. You just breathe it out and sound like Mickey Mouse.
Right.
Yep.
Don't inhale too much of it because it can displace oxygen and make you pass out.
But it's not the helium hurting you.
Right.
The oxygen deprivation.
Yeah.
Taking a mouthful off of a balloon isn't going to hurt you.
Exactly. So Uhura, in translating the data chips, finds that the kidnappers are actually a colony of Majalis, and they left paradise for some reason.
Technically, what she finds is that their language has common roots with the Magellan language.
Yeah.
And she says, therefore, that proves they're the same species. And I'm going, no, it doesn't. Vulcans can speak English, right?
Yeah.
Spock doesn't need a translator going in his ear all the time. Aliens can learn to speak languages. They can cross species boundaries with intelligent beings. And so that would prove cultural contact at some point between the Magellans or some ancestors before they moved to this hell world, because they clearly didn't evolve there. Or all that proves is cultural contact, not species sameness.
Right. But that's the idea is they want to get across is that they are an offshoot. Meanwhile, as the child and Gamal are about to beam off Enterprise down to the planet surface, precipitously, Gamal has decided that it's time to go now rather than later when they had planned. So he's changing the schedule. They are kidnapped by another combat cruiser, another of these kidnapper ships.
Appear to be kidnapped.
Yes. And it gets destroyed in the attempt to keep it from getting away. And the first servant is apparently killed, but as you say, and Alora says to Pike that the death of the child means that the floating cities will fall out of the sky. And Pike thinks that she's being dramatic, but in reality, that's actually what it means.
Well, yeah, I love Pike there. She's like, we're gonna all die. It's like, well, it's not that big of a deal.
It's not the end of the world.
We can give you grief counselors. We can help you.
Yeah. No, it's falling out of the sky. And they realized that Gamal had used the biopatterns from sickbay to beam himself and the child off the ship, and he hid the child instead somewhere on Enterprise, and that was Lesson 7: is leave no stone unturned. And they find that he actually beamed him into a cargo case down on the lowest level of the ship where they leave stuff in the corridors. That's how you know it's the lowest level of the ship. They don't put stuff away. They just leave it laying around.
Always. Yeah. Real military.
Poor Chief Kyle got completely blamed. He's like, I didn't do anything. I didn't do it. It wasn't my fault. I swear.
Yes.
I'm still hoping they follow up on the Chief
Kyle is horrible to work for.
Horrible to work for. I really want that picked up in the future. That would be such a great character trait, given how nice he appears to be.
Even if just like one scene where you hear like the last bit of yelling as Pike enters in the room or something like that.
Maybe, or I prefer them just to refer to it like they refer to Morn talking, and we never actually see it.
Yeah, that's true. That would be good.
Cadets go running out of the transporter room or something. Yeah.
And so now the reality of what's going on in Majalis starts to become apparent. We're finding out that the first servant, there's a horrific use for the first servant, that Gamal was trying to save his son. They sacrifice children, but he chooses it freely. Well, I don't want to get into contemporary cultural political issues, but this idea that a child could choose such sacrifice freely at such a young age is horrific. And, there's such a thing as age of reason, and this is why we only let adults join the military and do things like that.
Although, in fairness, this kid is a super genius and remarkably emotionally mature.
Is intellect and emotional maturity, though, enough? There's a moral maturity.
He's also been brainwashed by this ideology, and so I think that's the real delimiting factor.
Yeah,
is in him being able to make an informed choice. On the other hand, it's precisely because it's an ideology that it makes it hard to parse out in terms of moral culpability and values. They just have a disagreement with Federation morality, and as a normal human, it's like, okay, this is morally repugnant.
Yeah.
Yes.
But how do you can't measure moral values in a test tube or on a tricorder. So how do you prove? You kind of have to let the people have their ideology and fight it out amongst themselves, as they apparently are beginning to.
Unless there is an objective standard of morality that we abide by.
This is the Federation.
Well,
so
I was taking it a little meta, but like that whole scene. I mean, it was really well done. As watching Pike realize, seeing it in his face, what's actually going on here. Like he's confused. He's kind of concerned. He sees them carrying the stretcher with this desiccated body of a child, under a cloth away. And he starts to, and like he freaks out. He tries to intervene and has to be knocked out.
At this point, the first servant, when he's allowed to see the child that preceded him, who's still a child. I don't know how long it was supposed to have been in there. I mean, maybe it froze his development and was in there for 50 years or something, but it still comes out as a desiccated child body. The alien, the first servant looks at it and says, "Oh my God." And which I like. It's like, okay, these people have a belief in God. Nice to know. Thank you. But then he willingly consents anyway. He gets into the machine, and then the machine grabs him and sticks needles attached to glowing tubes all over his face, which is quite effective body horror.
Yeah. And they don't, I give them credit. They don't pull back. They don't soften the blow. Pike doesn't rescue the boy. This ends badly for this boy, and it's horrific. And Pike wakes up after being knocked out, and he immediately is, we got to go get him out. And it's like, it's too late. If you pull him out, he's just going to die anyway. Like he's integrated.
Yep.
Yeah.
And this whole civilization is founded on the suffering of children. In that. Yep. That is a horrific idea to any normal, sane human being. And
which makes this an interesting episode.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
And this idea that Pike has is that this is wrong in the face of whatever the Magellan sense of morality is. So there is an objective truth of what is good and what is evil. And I like the fact that finally, we're back to Star Trek saying that there is objective good and objective evil, that there are some things which are permissible and some things which are not. And there have been times in the not too distant past where that was not necessarily true of Star Trek. So I'm glad to see that. But Allura really, really wants Pike to accept their way. She really thinks that if only he would try to see it her way, he'll accept it. And he just can't. It's not going to happen.
Yeah, he just beams out after she explains it all. It's like, I'm not going to dignify that with discussion. I'm gone.
Right.
I'm done. Yeah.
But in the end, we have Gamal, who's still on the Enterprise and who's now persona non grata.
Elder Gamal, the old camel.
The old camel is still on the Enterprise, and he does offer to help M'Benga to give him some protocols and technology that could save his daughter. So that's going to be the at least part of what saves her eventually, I would think.
It may at least allow her out of the transporter, because he says it's not he has M'Benga bring up her file, and he says, I'll walk you through the treatment protocol, but it won't cure her. But if it will treat her, presumably she won't have to ration her time in the transporter like she is currently.
Right. And then we end with this silent scene. Yeah,
Gamal is going off to join the rebels on the other planet in order to try to save one of the next special magic children.
Right.
And this is a fulfillment of what M'Benga said when it was revealed that his daughter was in the transporter buffers, that somewhere there's a planet that will have the cure, and now he's found it, and he at least can work towards it.
Yeah. Yeah, and as I was going to say, at the last scene is Pike wordlessly standing in his quarters, staring at the viewport at Majalis, drinking his whiskey, and with the haunted expression on his face.
And the pulsar. You see the pulsar in the back.
Oh, okay, right. So, considering everything that he's just gone through, and that's where it ends. Final thoughts on this one, Father Cory?
Kind of one geekery thing that they had in this. Spock's talking to the first servant, and the first servant asks Spock, "So do you know what the speed of a subspace radio is?" And Spock says that the speed of propagation of subspace radios is 52,000 times the speed of light. That's how they're able to have intergalactic conversations. And
I'm so glad they addressed this. I was going to comment on that too, because it's clear that they can communicate faster than light without having to be at warp. So subspace radio works faster than light, but it's also clear it has a finite speed. because as it's not infinitely fast, because as far back as the original series, there would be times where they would be out of communication with the Federation. And it's like, well, we can check on that, but it's going to take 3 days to get a reply or something. And so to actually land a number on this was fascinating. They didn't have to do that, but apparently the writers found a number they were happy with at 52,000 times the speed of light. Now that means that the same kind of phenomena we encounter with light speed limited communications will happen with subspace speed communications. So for example, like if you want to talk to the moon, to somebody on the moon, it's, I don't know, a couple light seconds away. So there'll be a couple seconds delay when you talk, which is effectively enough to make you incredibly angry in a conversation.
Yeah. It's like a bad Skype call,
but not enough to end the conversation.
Yep. And
so I did some calculation. And so for a 1 day delay, if I did my math right, for a 1 day delay, so it's like it's going to take 48 hours to get a message there and back. That would be 143 light years. And for a 1 second delay, which is enough to make you irritated in a conversation, it would be about 14, 15 light hours. And that's about 3 times the distance to Pluto, and which is about 5-6 light hours away. And so I don't think this number fits too well with what we've seen on screen, because we haven't seen, either they're just out of communication or they're talking to each other in real time.
Yeah.
Right. But they're clearly more than 3 times away the distance to Pluto, presumably to whatever starbase they're talking to. And they're not having any kind of delay at all. But I still appreciate the effort.
Yeah.
Well, and the Expanse does a good job of showing light speed communication, speed of light communication, and the consequences of that when they're trying to talk to someone, say, around Jupiter, and it takes, minutes for the communication to get there and back.
Yeah.
There's no real-time conversations.
Yeah. And so, and of course, they also use this to explain why the Federation has to use all of the species, not just Federation, have to use subspace relays, which you've seen, even Enterprise and everything, where they had to use the relays to help boost the communication.
Yeah.
Because it would degrade. It wouldn't be a clean signal when you get too far away.
Which the Magellans then view as like, oh, that's really slow technology. So maybe by TNG era, they've got even faster stuff.
When you get ready to upgrade from your, tin cans in line, we'll talk to you type of thing,
Right. Jimmy, any last thoughts?
So let's see. Pike allegedly was here 10 years ago when he encountered Alora and saved her from a shuttle accident involving a nearby pulsar. And he fell in love with her at the time, so she's like an old flame, and they still have feelings for each other. And he doesn't know remotely enough about her culture for that to be true. You don't just fall in love with somebody and know nothing about them and their culture. You might be attracted sexually to someone, it's like, wow, she's hot. But that's not the same as the relationship these two people have. And so he doesn't know enough about their culture during this episode to have had a romantic relationship with her in the past. So that was implausible to me, or at least that whatever previous relationship he had with her was really weird.
Of course, in our culture, when people talk about falling in love, it can mean anything from developing a deep relationship, lifelong relationship, to lust, to just having a crush. I mean, and I think that's kind of how they're using it, is more like basically he had a crush on her and still has a crush on her.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's just me, but I started out with a crush on a girl, but I knew a lot more about her than he seems to know, and her culture than Pike seems to. That crush went on for years. But I found that implausible. Also implausible, although there is a way you could headcanon it, such an advanced planet has apparently not discovered the technology of guardrails because
Yeah.
they're just running around on these floaty platforms that don't have guardrails.
Star Wars Imperial design language.
Yeah. Hey, it solves overpopulation. Get too close to the edge. Oops.
And like we mentioned, this planet has a lava surface with acid lakes, so acid sloshing around on top of lava. These people clearly did not evolve on this planet. They came from somewhere else. One thing that occurred to me and this is the last thing, but one thing that occurred to me while I was watching this episode is, so we have this kind of crossover, with characters from the original series like Uhura. And I thought, I wonder who else we could have crossover. Harry Mudd.
Oh, yeah. Well,
And
from
they've already
Discovery.
He's already been on Discovery. They've got a great guy to play
Yep.
him. They should bring Harry Mudd on Strange New Worlds.
Yes. That would be very interesting to have a Harry Mudd episode. That would be, they should do that. Totally. That was, like we said last time, that was one of the funniest episodes of Discovery was that Harry Mudd time travel one.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. So, and whatever, I agree with almost everything you guys said, and I would add for my own thing, whatever problems there were with this, it still was a really good episode, and I really enjoyed it.
I enjoyed it.
Oh yeah.
And
It was reminiscent of the original series in a big way.
Yes.
And it had some of the same goofy plot holes that the original series would have, but it's still enjoyable.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, frankly, the original series had even bigger plot holes at times,
Yeah.
so that doesn't deter my enjoyment. All right,
I mean, we're almost to the halfway point of this season, and so far there hasn't been any episode that I would just say is just an absolute stinker.
Yep. And
A
know.
little past halfway now, right? Because this was
I thought it was
episode
supposed to be a
10?
13.
10.
I think it's 10.
Oh, I thought, okay, I'm just going to peek real quick here.
Yeah.
Oh, you're right. It is 10. Okay, so this is past halfway. Yeah, but none of the episodes so far would be a stinker. The episodes like better than others, but
Yeah.
it's been good so far. I've been enjoying it.
So, and that actually will come up in our feedback, so which we should get to now, because our first feedback comes from, this is on our last episode, Spock Amok, and Dave sent an email, and he said, I just listened to the podcast mentioned above. I always felt that T'Pol said it very succinctly in the Enterprise episode, The Forgotten. Trip had just said that he envied the Vulcans because of their lack of emotions, and T'Pol said, you think that the loss of a colleague or a friend doesn't affect us? It does. But if we give in to those emotions, they overwhelm us. I always felt that T'Pol as a Vulcan and Jolene Blaylock as the actress thereof were underrated and underappreciated. Yeah.
I agree in terms of the actress. I think they wrote her character, especially in the beginning, badly because they were trying to play this Vulcan human antagonism thing. And it made her initially less likable. But I agree. She was a big supporter of the show. She's a big champion for it. When it was in the process of cancellation, and her performance, especially in later seasons, I really appreciated.
Yeah. And I think that line, by the way, with T'Pol was right on target. Yeah, it's not that Vulcans don't have emotions; it's that they tamp them down so that they don't overwhelm them. Then we had some feedback from Jason via Patreon.
I still, though, if I was ever cast to play a Vulcan, I would like try to play a repressed Cyrenite. So it's like instead of these other Vulcans are like repressing anger, and I would like be trying to repress joy.
So Jason, patron Jason, sent a message. He said, "I would like to make an observation. Your group has rightly so commented that first seasons of new Star Trek shows have historically been lacking. The first seasons of TNG, DS9, Voyager, Enterprise have all been filled with stinker episodes until the shows found their footing. To me, Strange New World seems to have broken that curse and have given viewers quality episodes right out of the starting gate. I have high praise for Strange New Worlds and hope they keep up the high production and story quality."
Yeah,
I agree.
Like you just said, I agree. Yeah,
This may be the best first season of a Star Trek series.
At least, with the possible exception of the original, I'd have to revisit that and see what's in the original series 1 original.
That's
also, I'm accepting Lower Decks because that's a fundamentally different genre.
Yeah.
agreed.
But Jason, right on target there, that it has really been good so far. And then
It's been a great run.
Yes,
so far.
Matt S via YouTube says, "Hi all. The Voyager episode, The Bride of Chaotica, was a comedy episode in Voyager, so that might be the last one besides the one in Discovery."
Yeah.
Anyhow,
Okay.
yeah. So that's fair enough. Anyhow, I love the show. You guys maybe keep an active subscription to Paramount Plus because I like listening to your show every week after watching Strange New Worlds. Paramount should be paying you something.
As they should.
well, yes.
Matt, I do not disagree with you. I think I would not say no to a nice fat check from Paramount to support SQPN.
If you're at Paramount and you'd like to support the show, please go to sqpn.com/give.
Yeah. Or contact Dom at.
Yes.
And unfortunately, we'd be more likely to get cease and desist orders if we tried to play any clips from the show.
Or something like that. Yeah. But yeah, thank you, Matt. That's true. And yes, Bride of Chaotica was definitely, I think, a comedy episode. All right, so that's our feedback. We'd like to take a moment to thank our patrons, as we referenced, to make it possible for us to create the Secrets of Star Trek, including Kelly P., Robert P., Eliza F., Ben and Susie S., and Brian T. Their generous donations at sqpn.com/give make it possible for us to continue the Secrets of Star Trek and all the shows at StarQuest. You can join them by visiting sqpn.com/give. So that's it from us. We would love to hear what you think of Lift Us Where Suffering Cannot Reach. I won't try to do the song again. Let us know by commenting on the show at sqpn.com/trek or our Facebook page, facebook.com/StarQuestMedia. Send an email to trek@sqpn.com or visit our Discord community at sqpn.com/discord. We'll be back next time when we'll be discussing the next new episode of Strange New Worlds, The Serene Squall.
Sounds like a soap opera.
It does.
From the 1950s or 60s. Today on the Serene Squall, Jacob must make a decision about whether he's going to tell Becky the truth about the operation on her daughter Cynthia's best boyfriend.
Or the Serene Squall, followed by the Blustery Blizzard.
Yeah.
Next on the Weather Channel. Until then, Father Cory Sticha, thank you for joining me and sharing the secrets of Star Trek.
Thank you, Dom.
And Jimmy Akin, thank you as well.
Thank you, and live long and prosper.
And once again, I'm Dom Bettinelli. Thank you for listening to the Secrets of Star Trek on StarQuest. And remember, very, very important, a Rigelian tiger pounces with no warning. Unlike all the Earth tigers.